worshiping idols. And he said that during my idol worshiping time before I was gathered to Islam, I had to go on a journey. And Omar said that I used to carry the God that I worship, and especially in traveling, I used to carry this figurine of him in my pocket. So when I stopped in my journey, I would stop and worship my God. I always had this thing with me. And Omar said that on one of these trips, and I'm just trying to show a mindset before looking at how people who were that steeped in just worshiping anything other than the one true God, that Omar said that one trip I forgot to carry my idol, a portable idol with me. So he said that when he stopped to rest, he had some dates. And Omar said that I took those dates, and to the best of my ability, I shaped them to make them look like that item that I would carry around with me everywhere. Omar said that he went a little further on his trip, and he got to a point where he said that I'm hungry, I don't have enough food. And so Omar said that I ate my date God. That this is how low the understanding and the connection with the Most High, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a level that the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent for the guidance and submission to Him, to bring people to show example of how to worship Allah. That's just one small example of the mentality that existed at that time. So when the Prophet Muhammad came with the message of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent him with, not just as a messenger to just those who were right there in the Hijaz, living in the area where he was living, but as a messenger, as this Khatam Nabi'in, as the final prophet, as a messenger to all humanity. Not just to a messenger to the Arab people. And it's interesting when we look at the population around the Prophet Muhammad at the time of this revelation. It wasn't just people from the Quraysh tribe. It wasn't just individuals from certain Arab tribes. That there were individuals that Allah gathered to Islam who from every area within a certain distance. There were people from the Abyssinian Empire, there were people from the Roman Empire, there were people from the Persian Empire who were a part of this universal message and who were a part of this generation. A generation of followers, of companions, of any prophet. And I stand here without any equivocation, without any hesitation in saying that out of all of those 124,000 prophets or messengers that the Prophet Muhammad referenced and said that this is how many Allah sent. Out of the 25 names of prophets, different prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in the Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that this total mission, that there's never been a time that human beings have been on earth. But the point that I want to make is that out of all of these prophets and the stories that we read about in the Qur'an, there is no prophet, and I say it without any hesitation, there is no prophet that had the kind of companions like that of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the history. Look in the Qur'an. Look at what persons of other faiths, even what they say about the companions of various prophets. Read in the Qur'an about the Sahabas, the companions of other prophets, and you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this final prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam companions that were unlike any other group of companions around any prophet. I'm not saying that in any regard as a put down or a slight to any of the other prophets or messengers, but I'm just citing to my knowledge a historical fact. And from that environment, and another interesting point, and I'll sit down. But one of the most interesting points that those who embraced Islam, who were not born into a Muslim environment like myself, who embraced Islam at a later stage in my life. I didn't grow up with Islam like so many others here in the masjid today. That one remarkable fact is that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not read or write. That here is a man that Allah revealed the final revelation to and protect the revelation. And there's nothing, and Allah knows best, and I stand to be corrected, that I have never seen anything that throughout the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ or throughout his prophetic career, that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ became literate as far as being able to read and to write. And so everything about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is surrounded by understandable miracles, not raising from the dead, not parting the waters, not those kinds of physical miracles necessarily, but by the impact that his words, by the example that he set, that so many millions, over 1.7 billion today, are following the example of this prophet who was a part, who grew up in the Arabian Peninsula. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. All praises due to Allah. We praise Him and seek His assistance against the evils of our minds and against the unsuccessfulness of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can lead him astray. And whomsoever Allah calls action as a result of their wrongdoing, no one can lead the right. Oh Allah, help those who help the religion of Muhammad and countless amongst them. Oh Allah, disappoint those who try to disgrace the religion of Muhammad and do not make us of those. Brothers and sisters, without getting into any detail in the interest of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the life of the Prophet Muhammad is an open book for anyone to learn about, be inspired, try to imitate that life. That there's no excuse for any one of us in this masjid right now not to know of the specifics about the life of the Prophet Muhammad. But what is it if I'm not a reader? And all of this sound literature that's available about the Prophet Muhammad, I have a hard time reading, so I can't access the information. Living at this time, there's absolutely no excuse for any of us not to know about the life of the Prophet Muhammad, the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Qur'an instructs us to obey Allah, obey this Prophet Muhammad. That it's not just a good idea, it's not just an inclination that we may have. Maybe I'm from the Arabian Peninsula and I take a closeness, I have a closeness in my heart because this is where the Prophet Muhammad was from. That there's nothing that you and I, no matter where we're from, whether we're from the southeast Winston-Salem or whether we're from Mecca, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a prophet, that the attachment to him is for all of us, and not just for any particular group of people or any people living in a certain locale. Allah has given us this universal prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah forgive me if I'm wrong in making this particular statement. I'll try to qualify it. But in my understanding, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the mission of Islam. He did not send him on this mission that from the time he publicly declared what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent him to call the people to, he was persecuted, he was attempted to be tortured, he was attempted to assassinate the prophet, only because he's saying there's only one God, all of these things you're worshiping, those who have given you inspiration and that you're following, is just a figment of your imagination. Because when God has always sent the same message to human beings, so I'm saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, given the totality of human beings' lives, did not send the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this mission to humanity just to teach us how to make salah. Yes, we believe we have the perfect method, perfect practice in making prayer, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the mission of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not punctuated that this is the end. This is the most important thing. Nothing else is important about this deen other than praying. We can go the same thing, say about fasting. How important it is for those who are physically capable of fasting. We're not traveling, especially during the month of Ramadan, how important it is for us to fast. The mission of the Prophet Muhammad was not predicated, it was not just built on showing humanity how to fast. That this is the way that you should fast. We can go through any of the guidance that the Prophet Muhammad brought to us. So then we have this dilemma. We have to figure out if it ain't just about salah, if it's not just about fasting, if it's not just about saving to make hajj and paying zakat and declaring the oneness of Allah, that this man Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah, there must be another, an additional reason why the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is so important for us to learn, to understand. How is it that we can say we are following the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we know nothing about his life? Brothers and sisters, this example, this sunnah that we ought to follow is something that's transformational. It takes a man like Umar ibn al-Khattab, Khalid ibn Walid, who people were afraid to even walk in the same space as he's walking, because I don't want to upset these guys because they'll beat me up, they'll crack my skull. To take people who were addicted to wine and drinking, getting intoxicated, to take people who were worshiping anything that their imagination could create, to take a society and transform a society where emperors and rulers are saying, forget about those insignificant people. They have nothing to offer the world or to me. They don't count. And then to take this same group of people and have them as Sahaba, as followers of companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu and transform the world, coming from that humble, coming from, and I'm not saying this in relationship to the Prophet, but coming from the ignorant practices that were being carried out by those who were living with and around the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu before and after he received revelation. And so I'm saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this gift called Muhammad, so we can learn about him. We want to know everything about him because we want to live like him. Allah has commanded us to obey him, Allah, and obey the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How do we obey the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he died over 1400 years ago? We obey him by knowing what his sunnah is and following that sunnah. In closing, I'll say that I'm a very simple-minded person. And this simple-mindedness brings me to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this sunnah, this example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has protected it for all these centuries and will be protected up until the day of judgment. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a gift, not only to our individual selves and our families, but to collectively be able to transform, to change, to influence the societies in which we live at all times, in all places. That this is a special gift that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could bestow upon human beings. And so I, at the bottom of my heart, believe that myself, what I can do, what my family can do to try to better ourselves is nothing compared to the coming together and collectively what we can do to transform and change the decadent environment and society in which we're living today. That only Islam can be a solution to the problems that this nation and every nation that's not following the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me share just one thing and I'll be done. You know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was asked a lot of questions by his Sahaba, and he was asked various things, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave different responses to different brothers, but whatever they were told, those brothers and those sisters shared it with others, that the Prophet Muhammad said this on this occasion. And the Prophet Muhammad gave a very simple answer on one occasion when a brother asked him, what is the best thing I can do? What can I personally do to get me closer to Allah, to get this environment in a better shape? And the Prophet was reported to have told him, extend the salam. Increase the greetings of salam. Very simple. It's nothing complex. It's something that every single one of us, if we can speak, we can say it with our mouths. If we can't speak, we can walk around with something in our pockets and someone give us salam. We'll show them the card saying, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. That there should never be a time when I see my brother, when I see my sister, and they give me salams. This is how simple this deen is, how simple it is to elevate our status in the eyes of Allah. It's simply returning a salam with something that is better. Someone say, assalamu alaikum, or they get salam, very simple. It's something all of us can do. So, brothers and sisters, let's not miss out on the opportunities to transform, to get better as individuals. And the way to do that, the simplest way to understand what to do, is that of learning about the practices and the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following that sunnah, that example to the best of our ability, and reminding one another, not in a way that's a put down for someone, but just on the simplest, the most basic things, just reminding one another that this is a sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and perhaps we should follow this particular sunnah. Lord, all praises to Allah. We praise him and seek his assistance. Oh Allah, give us an understanding of this deen that is beneficial for us in this world and in the next. Oh Allah, strengthen our understanding and our work for your cause for this righteous movement of Islam. And oh Allah, make not this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad an object of test for the disbelieving people. Brothers and sisters, a few quick announcements here. The food bank